Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. Sleigh bells ringing, diamonds blinging, carols singing, favorite season. They said, say Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah. I got racks in my sack or in my back, yeah. They said, say Nick, what you got up in that bag, yeah. I got racks in my sack or in my back, yeah. Frozen, neck is frozen, catch me rolling, I'm the chosen.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection and Merry Christmas. I'm Nick Rudman, joined as always by a man who really wants some hair gel this Christmas. That's Andrew Mize. We are not your typical big sports media talk show. We don't have the big budgets. We don't have the fancy suits, obviously. So we got to make up for it. We got to do our research, work ridiculously hard, and be ridiculously good looking.
That's right, Nick, and I may just find some of that hair gel under the tree this year. You never know. But we don't really, have the support of big sports media. We don't have the fancy suits, like you said. We don't have the big budgets. It's just us doing our thing on our own. And that means that we could really use your help, you, the viewers. So whether you're watching us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, just, give us a like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. All of that really goes a long way. If you're looking for us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, we're at Saturday Morning Inspection. If you're looking for us on Facebook and Twitter, at SMI Football Show. As always, you can check us out on our website, smishow.com. All right, Nick, we've got a pretty good show in store for today. I think you're very excited about it. I'm very excited about it, too. We've got our first ever mock draft under the belt. I don't really know what I'm doing. I hope you do. So let's see if we can look back on this in the coming weeks and see if we got any picks right.
Yeah, the good news is, maybe we don't know what we're doing. I think we do. I think you and I got a pretty good handle on it, but we know for sure a lot of NFL teams don't know what they're doing. But the good news is they're going to tune in and they're going to get a good bearing on what they need to do this draft season. We got our mock draft 1.0. I am so excited. This is going to be awesome.
All right. So let's get right on into it. As is, customary, a good host, I'm going to let you have the first pick, Nick. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right.
Let's do it. So number one overall pick, this is the Detroit Lions. They got to go quarterback here, reshape the franchise. I'm going quarterback Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. Look, there's some tempting talented defensive linemen on the board early in the draft, but I think Dan Campbell in Detroit, they need kind of a new direction for that franchise. Jared Goff is not the long-term answer. I like Kenny Pickett. This guy started a lot at Pitt. He ended his career on a high note, 40-plus touchdowns, 4,000 yards, won the ACC. I really like what this guy showed maturity, right? Detroit's going to be a tough situation, total rebuild. They need a grown-up. They need a guy who's been through a lot of ups and downs, which Pickett was as a starter at Pitt. I really think he grew at his time in college and became more mature, more of a leader. One thing I really like about him, too, he distributes the football very well. He doesn't rely on just sheer athleticism and talent to make plays. He's very game savvy. We saw with the fake slide in the ACC championship game. He's a competitor. I really, really like Pickett. I think Dan Campbell in Detroit will come to really like Pickett as well. I think he's the right pick at number one overall.
Well, that's a very bold suggestion. You don't think Jared Goff's the guy?
No, I think we've seen it, right? I think he's a stopgap, right? And
absolutely.
And I think, we saw kind of how much more explosive the Rams have been over the course of the season without him. And while he hasn't been absolutely terrible for Detroit this year, he hasn't been good.
He's pretty close to being absolutely terrible.
Well, you win one game, right? It's kind of easy to go that route. But I just think so much with a new not new franchise, but a new direction for that franchise. You need to get a young quarterback in there to kind of start the process off fresh. Because remember, Jared Goff is expensive. He signed a big contract. You don't want to be a bad team with a big, really bad quarterback contract on the books. I think if this isn't Jared Goff's last year in Detroit, certainly next year is. Maybe they keep him on long enough to get Pickett brought up to speed. I think there's a chance they draft Pickett and cut Goff this offseason.
All right, Nick. Well, if you're going there for number one, that makes number two very easy for me. You said it. There's two big pass rushers on the board. let's go number 2, Jacksonville Jaguars, selecting Aiden Hutchinson, University of Michigan. It's really a toss-up between Thibodeau and Hutchinson. You could strike gold with either of them, or you don't know. But after his big game against the Buckeyes, he had 15 total pressures against the Buckeyes in the Week 13 victory. Showed a lot of grit. I love players who show up in big games. I like them to show up all the time, but if you can show up in a big game when the lights are the brightest, it gives you a little extra je ne sais quoi. So that's why I've picked Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan to go to Jacksonville at the number 2 slot. Jacksonville probably could use an O-lineman here. There's a lot of things they can do, but when you have this kind of talent, I would definitely jump on it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Shout out you for that nice international reference. Already on pick 2. This is a big move for you going that way. Look, I think what Hutchinson brings to Jacksonville. When was the last time the Jaguars were actually good? They were Saxonville, right? They had a lot of pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hutchinson gets them back on that track. They need playmakers everywhere on the both sides of the football, and Hutchinson I think is the best playmaker on that draft right now, number 2 overall. Even though he's on the defensive end, like you said, he exerts all kind of pressure. You can line him up traditional defensive end, hand on the ground, or he can be stand up. He's really good in both. I think he's a clear pick here for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
To me, he kind of comps to like a Max Crosby from Las Vegas Raiders. Very similar player. Hopefully, if you get those results, you're always going to be happy.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a good comp. I think there's a lot of things that he's going to do in the NFL. I'm excited to see him play. Moving on, number 3, you mentioned Thibodeau as the other defensive end, and that's who Houston takes here at number 3 overall. That's defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon. This guy came into this past college football season as a highly touted number 1 on a lot of people's big boards. He comes off number 3 in our mock draft. He has every physical tool you want in the world as defensive end. He's massive. He's explosive. Reminds a lot of people of Chase Young. The one hang-up I have on Thibodeau is that he's not quite as productive as a guy like Chase Young was at Ohio State. I still think he's disruptive. I still think he's a playmaker. Houston needs a lot of pieces. They may even felt like they probably could have gone quarterback here, but I really think they have to go best player on the board, and it's clearly Thibodeau at this moment. And I think this is a good pick for Houston here. It doesn't really help their franchise in terms of figuring out that quarterback position, but I think Thibodeau has a chance to be a real big playmaker. And look, in that division, you're playing Trevor Lawrence, you're playing Carson Wentz. You got to be able to stop the run against Derrick Henry and get some pressure on Ryan Tannehill, and a pass rusher will help him do that.
That sounds, logical progression here. Like we said, after you go QB number 1, there's really no more more standout players. There's not another quarterback that you could take over one of these guys, so they're gonna naturally go 2 or 3, however they go next, and you can't pass these guys up. This like a Chase Young, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa's. They're going to go early. They're going to go in the first 3 picks no matter what happens. All right, on to our number 4 pick, and I have New York Jets trying to help out their new young quarterback with an offensive lineman, Evan Neal. I believe Neal he's a huge guy, like 6'7", 350. He has unbelievable quickness and speed for somebody that is that heavy. I think he's only allowed 22 pressures in the last 2 years, and he, even better, has bounced around between left and right tackle. He's played both positions. So, the Jets, I know they got some O-linemen last year. I know they've picked up some guys in the past. I think they have like Mekhi Becton or somebody along those lines. But this guy can flip to either side, and if you start him out early, I think that this is a guy that is going to be with your franchise for years to come. You got to protect your young quarterback. I think that's part of the woes he's been having so far. So I have the New York Jets picking an O-lineman in Evan Neal, Alabama.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick. Look, the Jets play in the AFC East. What is that division known for? You got Bill Belichick. You got defense. You got Brian Flores in Miami, defense. You got Buffalo Bills with McDermott. They're known to play a lot of defense, really aggressive team as well. The Jets have done a terrible job protecting Wilson. You already alluded to that. They drafted Becton. They need more help on that offensive line. I agree with you. Evan Neal's a great fit. He's a good run blocker and pass blocker. I think even if he plays at right tackle, which I think he'll be a really good player at left, but if he plays at right tackle, that's still a big help to that running game for the Jets and that pass protecting of their young quarterback, Zach Wilson. I think this is a really good pick here at number 4 for the Jets. Moving on, number 5, also the New York Jets. This is the pick they got trading with Seattle. They traded Jamal Adams to get this pick, the safety. And with Adams out of that secondary, they need to rebuild it, and they take the best defensive back available. This is Derek Stingley from LSU, the corner. Stingley had an All-American season as a freshman. Came back in 2020 and 2021, a little bit of a setback. Set out some games for COVID, opted out, had a few injuries. Look, LSU produces elite defensive backs: Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu. The list goes on and on and on. I think Stingley's a great fit for that Jets defense, who needs any sort of help they can get on that back end. They are really, really bad on defense. Robert Saleh is a defensive guy. After this year, he needs to make moves on that defensive side to prove he can be a good coach and really change the attitude and that structure of that defense. And I think Stingley's a good guy to do it at number 5.
Yeah, I think that's a great selection. And like you said, LSU, historically, great at producing defensive backs. So if you need one, go ahead and grab one from there. You can't go wrong. All right. That is it for the New York Jets, but we have not left the city of New York, rather New Jersey, to be more exact as far as where the stadium is. We are going to the New York Giants, and we're not leaving the defensive side of the ball either. I have the New York Giants drafting George Karlaftis, defensive end from Purdue. I think this guy is a very consistent DN. He is huge, 6'4", 275. He can go play either side of the ball, really. He can be inside. He can be outside. He's a real Iron Man style player. He doesn't need to be limited in his snaps. I believe he played over almost 667 snaps this season. Very consistent edge, defensive end, interior offensive line or defensive lineman. He can play wherever he needs to play, and I think New York can get back to playing some solid defense. Like you said, when were the Jags good? Saxonville. When were the Giants good? Back when they had the Jason Pierre-Pauls. Back when they had Olivier Vernon. Back when they had top-tier defenses to back up an Eli Manning offense. If you think Daniel Jones is your guy, which you probably don't, you need to have a good defensive end to anchor that defense.
Yeah, and you hit the nail right on the head when you mentioned he played 600-plus snaps. Look, over a 12-game college season, right, that's 50-plus snaps a game on defense. That's a lot for a guy that is a pass rusher. A lot of coaches like to sub those guys in and out, give them a lot of a break on first and second down, especially over the course of the season. Karlaftis isn't that. He is an every down player. He's got a great motor, can stop the run, can rush the passer. I really, really like this pick for the Giants here because, the Giants, like you said, that they're kind of missing a little attitude. I think this is one of those guys that can give it. He's kind of an old classic lunch pail, gym rat kind of guy, hard worker.
First in, last out.
First in, last out.
Coach's son.
Whatever cliche you can think of, this guy's it. I think it's a great pick for the Giants here at number 6. Number 7, look, you brought up Daniel Jones. I think the way the Giants season is going in 2021, they're probably looking at a new GM and with that a new head coach. Anytime you get a new GM and a new head coach, a new rookie quarterback is always going to be coming in. And that's why I think the Giants get here at number 7. They're getting Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. Matt Corral is the best available quarterback at this point. A lot of people have him as the best quarterback in the draft. I'm not as high on Corral as a lot of other people. I think he played in the Lane Kiffin offense where Lane Kiffin just makes superstars with the way he's able to scheme things up in the SEC. I think he put up good numbers. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a tough guy. I like him as a player. I just don't know how much potential he has. He's not an overly big guy, doesn't have a great arm. He's a pretty good decision maker. He's gotten better taking care of the football. New York's a tough place to play, to go from Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi, to New York City, New Jersey, like you said. But I think this Giants organization, they need a new quarterback. They're going to go that direction after trying Daniel Jones for 3 years. So I'm thinking Matt Corral's our guy here at number 7.
Yeah, I like it. Daniel Jones isn't the guy. And what I really like is what Arizona did a few years ago. They got Josh Rosen. They realized he wasn't the guy. They moved on quickly. They got Kyler Murray. They think that he is their guy, and he's proving to be pretty valuable. So I like when teams, they need to stop pouring all of this time. If you get a first-round guy and he's not the guy, just move on for him, get the next guy. And I like New York moving on from Daniel Jones here and bolstering. They have a lot of high picks, 2 first-rounders, back-to-back, 6 and 7. You got to use it to get what you can. So I really like that pick there, and I like New York doing that. Wait for a new GM coach to cement their legacy. All right, in the number 8 slot, where do we go other than number 8, the Atlanta Falcons, selecting Kyle Hamilton? This guy is, typical Notre Dame safety, real big, premium position player. He's 6'4", 220, and he can play sideline to sideline, very quick, but he's also very big. Great tackler, great ball skills, and he can change the game at any point in time if he can snag an interception or play up against the line, make a quick sack or something like that. He is really, really what Atlanta needs. Like you said, they have some solid linebackers who are, kind of situational guys like Deion Jones. He's like a quick guy. They need a real game changer in the back of their offense to kind of get them back on track defensively. And I think Kyle Hamilton is the guy to get them there. Now, Nick, while I set up for our next round, it's going to take me a second. Why don't you let me know what you think about this pick?
Yeah, so Kyle Hamilton's been a 4-year starter at Notre Dame. He's been every year he's been with Notre Dame. He's started and played a lot. One thing I really like about Hamilton is, you brought it up, his sideline to sideline ability. The guy can play, not just between the hashes like a typical center fielder. He can play sideline to sideline, just even beyond that, and that's huge in the NFL. Look, the Atlanta Falcons have a really nice cover corner in A.J. Terrell. They like him in man-on-man matchups. Because of that, they like playing a lot of single high looks, but you've got to have a good safety who can cover ground, and Kyle Hamilton fits that to a T. I think he's great as a deep safety. He's a good tackler. He has the ability to make big interceptions. He's done that throughout his career at Notre Dame. Good hands, just like you said. The guy's played against top competition throughout his career. Notre Dame plays a really good schedule. I really like this pick. Hamilton's probably the best safety in the draft by far, second best defensive back behind Stingley. And I think where Atlanta really benefits here is they just need a guy who's almost used to winning, right? Notre Dame's won a lot, right? That culture in Atlanta, ever since the Super Bowl, they've done a lot of losing, especially the defense. They can't ever get past the fact they always blow leads. I think Hamilton can be a kind of a culture changer on the back end of that defense.
All right. Are we ready? Let's get in to our second part of the first round of the draft, our next 8 picks. All right, Nick, what do we got up?
So number 9, Carolina Panthers go wide receiver Garrett Wilson here. This is from Ohio State. Look, the Carolina Panthers have invested a lot in quarterbacks in recent years. They invested in Teddy Bridgewater. He's gone. They invested in Sam Darnold. Are they going the young guy, P.J. Walker? Are they sticking with Cam Newton? Who knows? But whoever they go at quarterback, their current group of wide receivers isn't working. I think DJ Moore's a really nice player, but Robbie Anderson has been a letdown. I think Garrett Wilson is made to step in that offense right away. Garrett Wilson played at Ohio State with a lot of wide receivers around him. He's used to not getting a whole bunch of targets. He's very, very productive. He's NFL ready, which is exactly what the Panthers need. Matt Rule, head coach of Carolina, he's swapped quarterbacks. He's changed offensive coordinators. At this point, none of that has worked. I really think getting another big-time weapon could be what that offense needs, and I think Garrett Wilson can do that for them.
I think that's a great one, and I think they could use a weapon. After I watched them this week lose to the Atlanta Falcons at Carolina Stadium, I could see them using a top-tier weapon like Garrett Wilson in that offense. All right. Coming in at number 10, we're not leaving the wide receiver train for very long. We're going straight back to the well. Drake London from Southern Cal, a real explosive weapon. Okay, Now, you look at me and you say, Andrew, the New Orleans already has a great wide receiver, Michael Thomas. And I'll say, yeah, he's okay. He had a really good year, but the best ability is availability. And he's been hurt. He's been inconsistent. He has a huge contract that does not line up with his abilities. He hasn't been on the field. He hasn't been able to give the Saints value with that contract. $27.5 million next year. That's insane when he hasn't played much the last 2 years. And you're going to look at me and say, Andrew, Drake London also got hurt this year, but all right, that's a fluke, broken ankles. That's not like an injury bug type thing. But what he did before that broken ankle is very important. In only 8 games, he racked up 88 catches for almost 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. Those are crazy production. And this guy, he is massive. 6'5", 210, and he led the NCAA in contested catches with 19 at that point in time. So this is your go-getter. This is your Michael Thomas 2.0. This is the guy that goes up and gets the ball every time. And you know what? Even if Michael Thomas's contract gets restructured or they trade him, whatever the case may be, these guys lining up side by side for a little while isn't too bad of an option as well.
No, I agree. I think it's a great pick. New Orleans needs offensive help. Their defense has played extremely well over the past couple of years. They're trying to replace Drew Brees. It's been a mixed bag so far, and I think London gives them another offensive weapon that can really step in. You know, in today's NFL, it used to be if you have one stud wide receiver, you know, like a Michael Thomas can be, that's enough. You need 2 guys. You know, look at what the Chiefs have done. Look at what the Bucs have done. To be really competitive, to be an elite team, you need multiple offensive weapons. And Michael Thomas, look, he's had a penchant for getting injuries. He's got a monster contract. They may look to restructure, even cut or trade him just to dump it. They need at least another wide receiver to pair with him, or if they go a different route, another wide receiver to place him. And I think London's that guy, like you said, big, tough guy, can make tough catches over the middle, a lot of contested catches, great fit for Sean Payton, that offense in New Orleans. Moving on to number 11, the first of 3 first-round draft picks for the Philadelphia Eagles. And like a lot of teams we mentioned, they've got a young quarterback. They got Jalen Hurts. Maybe they stick with Minshew. More likely they're sticking with Hurts. If you've got a young quarterback, you got to protect him. And I think they get the big man on Mississippi State offensive lineman, Charles Cross. Charles Cross has played for a spread air raid offense in Mississippi State the last couple of years. The Eagles use a lot of spread concepts with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I think it's a great natural fit. They have tried to replace Jason Peters, who left for the Bears a few years ago. Hasn't gone well. Lane Johnson, their other tackle, is really good, but he's getting older. I think Cross can step in right away, either at left or at right, wherever is needed the most, and do a really good job for that Eagles offense, protecting Jalen Hurts as he tries to grow and develop into a top-flight NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and I think this is a guy who's shown a lot of improvement from the previous years to this year. Went from 44 pressures and 570 snaps to only allowing 16 pressures and 720 snaps. So a lot of improvement. I think he's going to be a really big piece for that team. And like you said, protecting Jalen Hurts isn't always too bad of an idea there.
And one more thing real quick. The NFL is very reactionary. So you've got the Washington, they've got Chase Young, great player. Dallas has Micah Parsons, looks like a superstar pass rusher. The Giants in this draft, they already got a defensive end. Look, the Eagles need a guy to block these guys that they're going to play, twice a year, each of these teams. And Cross is a guy who they're going to need to step up and really, really try and be competitive in those matchups.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on to number 12. Oh, who is this? Again, Philadelphia Eagles, like you said, second of 3 picks that they have. And what do? They big man on offense. They flip that script, get the big man on defense. Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from Georgia. And, what more do you have to say about Jordan Davis than he is one of the most physically imposing specimens we have seen come out of the NCAA. I think maybe since like a Jadeveon Clowney came out. Like, this guy's 6'7", 360. He's fast as lightning. He can't be moved off the block. You get it all through this guy. He can play in the middle. He could probably play outside a little bit, but he can get you pressure up the middle. And who has the Eagles leaned on for a long time. Fletcher Cox, their interior defensive end, defensive lineman, great player. He's getting up there. Now that it's time to replace somebody like that, you gotta have another guy to come in and do the same things that Fletcher Cox was doing. So I think Jordan Davis is a perfect fit here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a great pick. What Jordan Davis can do is he can be an attitude setter in the run game. This is a guy that can win at the point of attack. And by the point of attack, I mean at the exact spot where there's a one-on-one or double team block where the offense is trying to run behind. And through his just sheer athletic talent, his size, strength, and speed, he can dominate those matchups. He did it at Georgia. And by winning those matchups, getting teams into second and long, that's when Philly can unleash a guy like Fletcher Cox and not have to have Fletcher Cox, as he gets older, play more and more downs and wear him down more. This is a great pick for Philly as they try and build up their defensive line. All right, so moving on to number 13, Minnesota Vikings. They select Andrew Booth, quarterback here. Look, the Minnesota Vikings, they were known for their defense for a lot of years. Harrison Smith, Anthony Barr, Xavier Rhodes. They still got Harrison Smith. He's taken a step back. Xavier Rhodes is long gone, and that secondary has gotten bad. The Minnesota Vikings, really, really talented defense for a while. Now they can't stop anybody. The Steelers roll all over them. The Ravens rolled all over them. Everybody's rolled all over them. In order to be competitive in the NFL these days, you need good corners, and the Vikings really need a good corner. They don't have any on that roster right now. Andrew Booth is a guy who can step in right away. He's played against big-time competition in the ACC in his career, has gotten a lot of top-flight coaching. I think he's a good fit for what Zimmer tries to do, right? Zimmer wants to play a lot of two deep safety looks. That's what he's more familiar with, and I think that's a lot of what Andrew Booth has faced. He's actually played a lot of one-on-one with the islands that they play with blitz packages. I think he fits well in two deep looks like cover two as well. I think he's a really good pickup for the Minnesota Vikings here.
Absolutely, like you said, they can use another top-tier corner. They can go back to the well. It's worked well for them in the past to get guys like this. And they need to go back to their defensive roots with that Zimmer defense. All right, number 14, going back to defense. And this time we have the Denver Broncos selecting linebacker Nakobe Dean from Georgia. First linebacker off the board. He may not be like a huge athletic freak like we've been talking about. So this guy, he's 6 foot, 225, still decent size for a linebacker, but he plays so fast that nobody can stop him. You have to be able to block him, you got to catch him, and he's going to blow by you. He's gotten crazy high pass rush grades this season. He's great in the run blocking game as well. Or run stopping game, rather. And this guy can play all over the field. He's a top-tier defensive talent that you can get at linebacker to play sideline to sideline and do whatever that you need him to do. And Denver's had historically some great linebackers, and they need to beef up that core a little bit more, bolster it, and get maybe the third piece to that front seven that they had now since Von Miller has left.
Yeah, exactly. And what Nakobe Dean can do, right, pairing him with Jonathan Cooper and Bradley Chubb, or two more traditional defensive ends, I don't want to go Micah Parsons comparison here, but he can kind of fit that role where he can be a situational pass rusher and really get after quarterbacks. And he also has the speed and athleticism to cover running backs and drop back in his zone coverage. And that's going to be big in that division. They're playing speed teams like Kansas City, speed teams like the Chargers. The Raiders, when they're not, falling apart, they have a lot of speed and talent on the offensive side of the ball. Nakobe Dean being able to be that tweener, pass rusher, cover linebacker is going to be huge in that division where it's all about speed and all about spreading it out. That's kind of what Denver's been missing, I think, in a lot of their matchups, is the ability to have a guy with the sheer athleticism to go toe-to-toe against these high-flying offenses. And I think Nakobe Dean's a great guy to do just that. All right, moving on to number 15. This is our big blockbuster of the draft right now. Originally, this pick belonged to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but with Ben Roethlisberger ending his career, getting to the end, we're saying he's going to retire after the season. That's what the reports have said. They need a quarterback. You've got Russell Wilson with Seattle. He's not happy. Reports saying last year he wanted to leave. More reports this year saying he's out. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers ship a king's ransom of draft picks to the Seattle Seahawks to get Russell Wilson. to revamp with Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, and that team to see if Pittsburgh can make another run at it with Russell Wilson. And I think Seattle comes in at number 15, looking to pick their replacement to Wilson, and they go after the athletic phenom from Liberty University. That's Malik Willis at quarterback. This guy is very, very comparable to Russell Wilson. Ran for a lot of touchdowns in college, threw for a lot of touchdowns. I think they don't have to play him right away. The Seattle Seahawks don't. They got Geno Smith. They got a lot of guys that they think they can fit in that offense in the short term. But Malik Willis is really, really talented, really, really athletic guy, can make all the throws a beautiful deep ball, can scramble. Really reminds a lot of people of Russell Wilson anyway. And, Pete Carroll, when he first drafted Wilson, started him as a rookie. I think he thinks Willis may be ready to fit into that shoes right away too. And I think Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh is a good fit for him. And I think Seattle launching their reload with Willis is a good reset for them too.
Absolutely. And yes, everybody, this is a little bit crazy, but it's very, very plausible that this happens, because I think that Mike Tomlin, after the season that Pittsburgh had this year, he's probably fed up. Not a great season, and I would dare to say it even could turn into a losing season, his first losing season ever in Pittsburgh. And you got to do something drastic to get away from a season that bad. You might not even make the playoffs this year if the division keeps being as crazy as it has been and you keep playing as bad as you've been. So this is a very, very good move for both sides if they could come to an agreement like this.
Yeah, and I think one more thing is Pittsburgh really wants a veteran quarterback. They really need a guy who's been there before. That's why they've stuck with Roethlisberger so long, just the way they run their organization. And you got to go up against Lamar Jackson. You got to go up against Joe Burrow. You got to go up against in the AFC. You got Patrick Mahomes. You've got Justin Herbert, Mac Jones as two other young guys. They're going to need a young veteran, a seasoned veteran guy in that offense to really stand up to that offensive firepower, building that division, that AFC. And look, Seattle, I honestly think they see next year as a rebuilding year anyway, right, with how good Arizona has been. LA Rams are going to be all in for a year or two. I think they're prepping more for 2023 anyway, and I think Willis is going to be their guy going forward.
Yeah. I may personally hate this decision because I don't want Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh, but I think it's a good choice by you, Nick. And that leads us to number 16, the Las Vegas Raiders have selected Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington. You lose a top-tier cornerback that you drafted last year. He gets arrested, cut from the team. You also lost a wide receiver, and you need to replace those guys because it really hurts when you have probably the worst first-round draft of all time because both of your players are out of the NFL after you've drafted them. So we give it another crack. We go Trent McDuffie, cornerback Washington. He's a real top-tier premium cornerback. He can do everything you want. He's only 5'11", but still, he plays much bigger than that. He only allowed 16 catches on 36 targets this past year for 11 yards, no scores, 5 pass breakups. I mean, he's a true lockdown corner. And if Las Vegas gets that rolling, they have a lot of other really solid parts on their defense. Their front four is crazy good. They've got a good young safety. This could really help bolster their defense and give them that Raiders attitude back.
Yeah, I agree. So like you said, last year's draft was tough, but they had the right strategy, right? They went in that division, right? You need to have speed on defense. We talked about Nakobe Dean stepping in for Denver. They drafted that corner, and obviously he had his legal issues, and he's done now with the Raiders. And I think they need to go back to that decision. It was the right decision last year, and it's the right decision this year. Get young, fast, and talented on defense is the way you have to compete with teams like the Chargers and the Chiefs in that division. And I think McDuffie is a great pick to let them do just that. All right, moving on to number 17, Cleveland Browns. They select wide receiver Chris Olave from Ohio State University. Look, this past season, we all know the drama with Odell Beckham leaving the Cleveland Browns. They still have Jarvis Landry at wide receiver, but he's been banged up. He's getting a little older. They need another young guy, right, to pair on the outside, and I think Olave is a good fit for that. He's a big playmaker, can make tough catches in traffic, has good speed as well, really rounded really talented receiver at Ohio State. And remember, he played with Garrett Wilson, who we already talked about. Ohio State's loaded, so he's used to sharing touches. Playing for a running team, playing alongside Jarvis Landry and David Njoku at tight end, he knows he's not going to get 100 balls thrown to him, and he's going to be okay with that because he's going to get a lot of chances for big plays. I think if whoever you go with quarterback at Cleveland, whether it's Baker or whether it's somebody else, you need one more weapon for this offense to really take it to the next year, and I think Olave at wide receiver is the guy to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick. You got to replace what you lost, and you can tell either Baker needs every weapon possible known to man, or you got to move on from him, try to find a better QB there, whatever decision to try to make. But you have a really good win-now team. If you could grab a good quarterback, this is a good piece to add to that team. All right, number 18. Back to the Eagles, their third and final pick. Bolstering that defense again, we have David Ojabo, I believe. I'm not really exactly sure how to pronounce that. Another big defensive end from Michigan. What could you say? Michigan's defense has been crazy good this year. Ojabo has had really great pass rushing grades all season long. Is kind of a breakout year for him of sorts. But I think it's really nice for Philadelphia to roll the dice here. You tier him up with your interior defensive linemen, and you get back to form of the Philly defenses of old that were so stout up front. This is really a great way for you to build that old Philly grit and toughness. Let's get back to the teams where the fans were throwing batteries at opposing teams. We want that grit. We want that anger they have, and let's get big up front. I love when teams draft and get big up front. Enough of these pass rush specialists. Let's get some real meat eaters up there who are going to tear stuff apart and wreck shop up front.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick. Look, Aiden Hutchinson on the other side got all the glory and all the attention, all the hype, and rightly so. But Ojabo had a great year as well, was very productive, took advantage of all the opportunities, dominated the one-on-one matchups he got. I think he's a great pick here in the middle of part of the first round for the Philadelphia Eagles as they go full on to get the front five on offense, front four on defense. And look, middle first round, I love when teams get linemen here. And I think, like you said, Ojabo, physical, tough guy, played in the Big Ten, immigrated from overseas to play college football. This guy's tough. This guy's a workhorse. I think he's a great fit for Philly. And I think it's going to be a really nice pick here for the Eagles as they really bolster their front four. Moving on to number 19, Miami Dolphins. They pick wide receiver Treylon Burks from Arkansas. They're committed to Tua. No doubt about it at this point. They're 100% on the Tua train. They drafted Jalen Waddle last year, and he's had a really, really nice rookie year. But Waddle's a kind of a smaller, shiftier, quicker receiver. Burks is more physical. He can make the tough catches in traffic. He's not necessarily a great route runner, but he's good enough. He's got strong hands, can fight through coverage. And to pair him with a guy like Waddle, who's kind of the opposite, creates kind of a matchup nightmare for a lot of opposing defenses. Tua and the Miami Dolphins love running RPOs, run-pass options, where they fake the run and read the run and then try and hit receivers over the middle. Burks did a lot of that in college for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I think it's just a natural fit for a team that needs another offensive weapon for their young quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. And Tua's really kind of, started out rough, but he's been developing. And I think the more tools that you give him to help him develop into the quarterback that you hoped he would be is going to do nothing but help a Miami team who's really tough. They can catch you while you're sleeping. I know from personal experience. Don't overlook them. But what we also don't need to overlook is we're not done drafting quarterbacks in the first round. With the 20th pick, the Washington football team have selected Sam Howell, cornerback, North Carolina. Okay. I love Heineke as much as the next guy. But he's been real inconsistent. He's been around. You know what he's about. He's not an unproven commodity. You know what you got with him. And this isn't your long-term success. So either keep him as a great backup, a great veteran backup to help out your team, or you move on for him. You get the new guy come in here. All right. Sam Howell had a great passing year last year. He kind of regressed a little bit of a passer this year, but what he did was make up for that with his top-tier run game this year. He rushed for over 1,000 yards, 1,072 yards this year, and he broke over 63 tackles. So he's elusive. He's got the rushing dual threat there. And if you can work with him a little bit, he was a good passer in past years. It's just this year wasn't his best year. But he also ran the ball quite a lot. So it's harder to get in a rhythm when you're thinking about running the ball so much. But I think this is a great dual threat quarterback for Washington. Another team that's very explosive. They won a lot of big play stuff. RG3 was great there. Maybe this is a more durable, more successful RG3. And I think this is a good fit.
Yeah, I agree. I think Washington needs to go quarterback. I think they're in a tough position because this is a little bit reach here in this draft for Sam Howell. But the problem with Washington is they've had issues at quarterback ever since Kirk Cousins left. And I think they're really well coached. They're really tough. They play hard, great defense, great running game, all of that. But when you're only about average at quarterback, which Heineke has moments where he's good, but a lot of times he's average at best. I think it's really hard to be a really good football team. Like you see all the contenders all have, at least above average quarterbacks. You got to be at least Ryan Tannehill, to be a good team. And the fact of the matter is Washington isn't at that level, and they really have the talent. They got a great defense, good running game, solid receiver in Tracy McLaurin. And if they can get a above average to good quarterback, a guy like Sam Howell, maybe uses his legs to convert some third downs, maybe make some big plays on bootlegs or zone reads. If they think they reach a little bit here, maybe he can develop that guy. I think they almost are forced to take a quarterback here just because they're almost think they're worried they're wasting all those first round picks and all that great talent on defense if they don't get a better quarterback on the offensive side of the ball.
Absolutely.
But all right, moving on to number 21, Buffalo Bills. They take offensive lineman Tyler Linderbaum. Look, like I already talked about, this point in the draft, I love drafting linemen, offensive or defensive, and I love drafting offensive linemen from the Big Ten. They're always tough. They always work hard. They always seem to work out and be great picks. You look at Zach Martin. You look at, even though he's Notre Dame, but that's Indiana, close enough to Big Ten. You look at Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson, those kind of guys. Those are the guys I love here in the first round. And Tyler Linderbaum is that kind of guy. Tough, physical run blocker. Is big, strong, can play a little play action run blocking game as well, which fits well into what Buffalo wants to do with Josh Allen. They do a lot of RPO. They work a lot out of shotgun. So there's a lot of run action in that Buffalo Bills offense. And I think this is a natural fit. And for a guy in Josh Allen, they put a lot of money in him. He's going to be the center point of that team for the next decade or so. They need to protect their investment. And I think Linderbaum's the guy to do it. He's from the Big Ten. He's used to playing in cold. He's used to playing in tough environments. And I think he fits perfectly with the Buffalo Bills.
And, I love interior offensive linemen from Iowa. Just like Marshall Yonda. They always seem to pan out. Big corn-fed boys. You know what you're getting there. And it's always a safe pick, like you said. All right. At number 22, we have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Ikem. Why did I pick all of the toughest names to pronounce? Ikem Ekwonu, the center. This guy, he really, I believe he went by Icky, possibly. You never know. I could have gotten my sources wrong. But like we said, you have a good young quarterback in Joe Burrow. The first year you have him, what is the issue? You don't have a good offensive line. He's running for his life every single play. He eventually gets injured because of all of this. Drafting a big center like this, or potentially just interior offensive lineman in general, this is a great move because he's going to be the guy up front. He's going to be leading that offensive line, making checks at the line for blocking schemes if he has to. And this is a guy who truly has been pretty dominant at the position. Maybe not quite as good as like a Linderbaum, but he's very, very up there. A great selection, I think, for anybody to make. And he's great run blocker. And with the development of Joe Mixon this year, who we've always known has been good, I think that's a pretty good thing to key in on. If you can develop your run blocking scheme a little bit better, hey, more power to him. And Power 5 O-lineman can't really go wrong there.
Yeah, again, this is going to be a big theme for us at this part in the draft. Getting offensive linemen with a younger quarterback is huge, and it's always a safe pick, and it's always a good pick. You talked about with Joe Burrow, right, running for his life. This is a guy who looks to be a perfect pick for Cincinnati in terms of Joe Burrow. You need to protect him, right? He's on that rookie deal, so he's cheap, but I have no doubt they're going to sign him to a big deal before long. I think he's a great fit for Cincinnati. Invest now in the protection. You rather invest now in the protection than have to scramble literally later to try and find protection at the quarterback position. And I think this is a great pick for the Bengals as they really, really try and nail down being the top spot in that very, very competitive AFC North. And again, you got a lot of great pass rushers in that division. You got TJ Watt, you got Owe for the Ravens. You got a lot of really talented guys who can make plays at the defensive line that you got to compete in, 6 times a year. And,
Myles Garrett for the Browns too.
Myles Garrett. Yeah.
Gotta watch out.
Yeah, totally forgot him there. But, yeah, definitely him. You need linemen and to protect your quarterback, and this is a great pick to do that. And, it's such a great pick. I'm following the exact same theme at number 23, the L.A. Chargers on the clock. They take Trevor Penning. They need similar exact same thing. I mean, we're going to keep beating this dead horse. Late in the first round, taking linemen, always a safe pick, always a good pick, especially if you got a young quarterback you want to protect. Justin Herbert has become a superstar. He's already thrown for 30 touchdowns this year. He threw for 30 touchdowns as a rookie last year. An absolute gunslinger, makes all kind of crazy plays. But the one downside is he holds on to the ball a long time. You need good quality offensive linemen to keep him upright. A guy like that's going to get hit unless you protect him. Trevor Penning's a guy. He's versatile. He can play anywhere in that offensive line. I really like the way, he kind of fits in with a bunch of different schemes. Really talented, really athletic guy. I think he's a great fit for this Chargers offense. And I think it's just a big step forward, right? You got to protect your investments when you got young quarterbacks.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Like you said, can't say it enough. Big guys up front, protect the little guy in the back. So let's keep Justin Herbert safe. I love watching him play. All right, to end out this part of the list, number 24, guess who's back? The Detroit Lions. And what did they do in the first pick? They got themselves a great quarterback. What do you need to pair with that quarterback? A wide receiver. We have Jahan Dotson, wide receiver. Like I said, you got a young quarterback. You're trying to develop him, trying to, get him moving, get his feet wet. Who does Detroit have on offense? Who do they have on any side of the ball? Rather that, I don't think they have too many selections to go to in any part of their passing or rushing game. Swift's okay, but he got hurt. This is what they need. They need to get him started early. They need to get reliable passing reps to him. Give him some weapons to go out and, get the job done. It's kind of a no-brainer here to give someone a productive wide receiver as a young quarterback. Get him started off early, a good pairing. Let him get some chemistry.
Yeah, great pick here for the Detroit Lions. And there's two really big takeaways here. So Dotson playing at Penn State, he's used to playing outside in the cold weather, which if you're the Lions, you got to go to Chicago. You got to go to Lambeau Field. That's a tough environment to be in. It's going to be cold late in the season. Weather's going to be crappy. You got to be used to playing in that. Dotson is that kind of guy. The other thing is at Penn State, they didn't have a lot of offensive weapons, especially his senior year. He had to be the main guy, and he was still insanely productive. Guess what? Like you mentioned, Detroit does not have a lot of offensive weapons. I think he's used to being in that kind of offense, and that's why I think the Lions are a great fit here. That's a great pick by you.
One last stat while I'm switching over to the next graphic. We can talk about this little fun fact. What do you need also? Someone reliable hands. Dotson only dropped 2 of 93 catchable targets this season. So very strong hands. Great selection, I think, for them. Let me get this next one set up, Nick, and we'll be ready to go. What do you think about Dotson's hands?
Yeah, so I think, when you've got a guy who can catch contested balls in traffic, which Dotson obviously can, it really goes a long way, whoever's playing quarterback, because there's a lot of big third downs over the course of a game. You get man on man, you get blitz, tough pressure in your face. You got to throw it, and your receiver's got to make a play for you. And, anytime, sometimes you can't run a great route. Sometimes you can't separate. You're playing good corner. Sometimes it's just being tougher, being physical, coming up with those contested catches. And I think having that guy that can make those plays is just going to be so big to keep drives moving. Because I think that's one of the problems with the Lions is that they just don't have, enough of those guys to convert those 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s that they find themselves in all the time. And Dotson can be that kind of guy. Like you said, he's a real possession receiver. He's used to being a number one guy. He's used to being in that role. And I think he can step in, whoever's playing quarterback, whether it's Goff or Pickett, and give them exactly what they need to keep drives moving.
Absolutely. All right. We're ready.
All right, let's keep rolling. Number 25, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. They select cornerback from Florida, Kaiir Elam. Dallas's secondary, everyone thinks they've taken big leaps this year, and while they've been better, a lot of that's been masked by how good Trayvon Diggs has been. But that being said, they give up a lot of big plays and a lot of passing yards. They're bottom 10 defense in yards. They rely so much on big plays from a couple key guys. They need another corner on that back end to step up. Anthony Brown, their other starting corner, is giving up a lot of big plays, a lot of penalties. Kaiir Elam is used to being on islands in the SEC. He's done a heck of a job. He has 5 picks in his career. That's a lot for a college corner, especially in the SEC. Defensive coordinator for Dallas, Dan Quinn. He loves corners that can make big plays in man-on-man coverage. That's why Diggs has done so well there with him as the coach. I think Kaiir Elam fits in very well. He gives him another corner to play opposite of Diggs, who's got good ball skills, because if you're playing opposite of Diggs, you're going to have a lot of balls thrown at you, and I think Elam has a chance to fit into that defense right away and make some big plays.
Yeah, I think this is a scary pick for Dallas. Developing that defense much more than it already is. It's going to give people fits for the coming years. And I don't know how you managed to get both Baltimore and Dallas. It's just how the cookie crumbled, I guess. But look at you making selections for our favorite teams, because we know they're going to listen to this, and this is what's going to happen. But moving on to number 6, I was able to pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. This was a no-brainer pick for me. What is the Chiefs' number one weakness? It's not a position. It's not even offense or defense. It's a single person. If Daniel Sorensen is on the field, you're a liability. He's going to get beat for a touchdown every single play. And what do? We go to the defensive background. We select Ahmad Gardner, cornerback from Cincinnati. You got to get rid of that guy off the field. Shuffle some people over. Maybe this guy drops back to safety. Maybe you have another corner cover over. But Ahmad Gardner is the opposite of Daniel Sorensen. Daniel Sorensen gets beat for a touchdown every play. Ahmad Gardner hasn't allowed a single touchdown in his entire career, even after starting as a true freshman at Cincinnati. And this year, he's only allowed 96 passing yards total. So, true lockdown corner, never letting up the big play. Chiefs fans should feel good about this. You should feel a little bit safer at night. You don't have the bad man Sorensen isn't going to hurt you anymore.
Right, and there's 2 things that are going to happen with the Chiefs, right? We talk about in one of our earlier shows is that Mahomes getting paid more money. They're going to have to let guys walk. Probably their pass rushers up front are really expensive, Jones and Frank Clark. They're not going to be able to get pass rushers this late in the draft, so getting somebody on the back end of the defense to help out is huge for that team. Ahmad Gardner's that guy, like you said, has been a lockdown corner for all of his time starting in Cincinnati. I think he's a great fit for that secondary. Defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo loves leaving his players on islands. That's why Daniel Sorensen always gets beat. He's a liability in coverage at the safety position. Gardner can step in and win a lot of those one-on-one matchups. This is a great pick for the Chiefs here as they try and rebuild that defense as Mahomes gets paid more and more money in his monster contract. All right, like you alluded to, I get to pick the Baltimore Ravens, who trade this pick to Dallas for – no, I'm just kidding. Baltimore Ravens here, look, they got their young quarterback who's going to get paid really, really soon, Lamar Jackson, a superstar in the league, already won an MVP, has already won a playoff game. You need to protect Lamar Jackson. And when were the Ravens the most dominant? When they had great offensive line play like Marshall Yawn down the field. And I think getting a guy from Kentucky, Darian Kinnard here at the offensive line, that's who the Baltimore Ravens pick at number 27, is exactly what they need. Look, Ronnie Stanley's a talented guy. They paid him a lot of money. But we're going to keep saying this till it doesn't make sense anymore. The best ability is availability. Stanley's too hurt too much of the time, and they've created a liability with him not in the lineup. They got Villanueva to sub in at tackle. He's been serviceable, I think, but he's 33, 34. He's not the long-term solution. I like Kinnard. He's versatile. He's played at guard before. I think he can potentially come in right as a rookie, start at guard, bring a big lift to that offensive line, and eventually move to tackle, either to replace Stanley or Villanueva. I think this is an ideal fit for a Baltimore team. Keep in mind, Kentucky runs a very spread kind of zone read style offense, not exactly like Baltimore, but similar. So he'll already have a good fit for the scheme.
Yeah, we've drafted skill position a lot lately, and it's really come back to bite us in our offensive lineman depth. We've been a revolving door at the position, constantly shuffling guys over to cover over. I think some stability here is a great choice. So thank you, Nick, for giving us a solid offensive lineman. All right, number 28, we're back. Let me scoot this over to the Buccaneers, and they are selecting running back Kenneth Walker III. Okay, and you think, Andrew, a running back for the Bucs? Well, they're pretty good everywhere else on the ball. But you have Leonard Fournette, you have Giovanni Bernard. Those guys are pretty good. I would say they're, decent as far as their position goes. But you need a superstar running back. I think that's the last superstar position you don't have, so to speak. But Michigan State running back, probably the top running back in the draft this year so far. Either him or there's one other running back possibly that is up there. You get a solid running attack, open up the passing game a little bit more for Brady, give him another option in the passing game even potentially. You can't possibly go wrong here. Kenneth Walker III has been a stud for Michigan State, a traditionally good running team who's given you guys like Le'Veon Bell in the past. Where you can't go wrong with this pick if you're the Bucs. I think the Chiefs, they picked Clyde Edwards-Helaire late a while back, and we saw how good that was for them early, even though it fizzled out maybe a little bit later. But that first season really was key. And what do we know? Tom Brady isn't playing forever. He's got 1-2 years max probably, and let's give him all the help he can get to try to get you another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick for two reasons. One, you mentioned Giovanni Bernard and Leonard Fournette. Bernard is up there. He signed a 1-year deal. This may be his last year in the NFL. Fournette's got some miles on him too, and he signed a short-term cheap deal. I think the way he's been playing, winning a Super Bowl last year, he's had some big games. I think he's probably gearing up for a big long-term deal that the Bucs cannot afford. So I think they replace what Fournette brings them with Kenneth Walker. I think it's a great pick. Look, you need a running back in today's NFL, even if it's just for a short time window. You see what happens when running games fizzle. Quarterbacks just have a hard time. You look at Prescott's recent struggles. Lamar Jackson starts throwing interceptions when all his running backs drop like flies. It gets a lot harder to play quarterback without a solid running game, without that play action behind it. I think Kenneth Walker fits right in and does a really, really nice job for that Tampa Bay offense.
All right, you ready to get into the last stretch, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. So number 29, this is Tennessee Titans select wide receiver Jameson Williams from Alabama. Look, personally, I'm more of an Evan Williams, not a Jameson guy, but that's a little liquor joke for you. But anyway, I think Tennessee Titans here, look, they went after Julio Jones in the offseason. It hasn't worked out. He's been beat up, hasn't been very productive. They have A.J. Brown, who looks like a really, really nice player, but this guy is always hurt. He's the best ability is availability, and that's kind of been biting the Titans at the wide receiver position. I think Jameson Williams, he's a big play threat, was this way at Alabama, reminds me very, very similar to Jalen Waddle, the plays he can make at the wide receiver position. I think the Tennessee Titans, with that play-action game based off that running game, they're all about big plays at that wide receiver position. And again, a guy like Williams, it forces those safeties to play deeper, which opens up more holes in the running game. I think it's just a natural, solid pick that fits right into the Tennessee Titans scheme.
And, Alabama wide receivers in the past have have been questionable, but I think ever since the development of Amari Cooper and since then, there have been top-tier guys. And I think that is why the Green Bay Packers have selected John Mechie III, another receiver from Alabama. And what is Alabama known for? They always have guys waiting in the wings, guys who maybe not have proven themselves yet. But look at the string of running backs they've produced in the last few years. Look at the string of wide receivers they've produced in the last few years. Every guy that is coming out there has produced. Every guy has been a stud. And I think you take a gamble here if you're Green Bay on Mechie. He's not the most physical guy, and he can get pushed around a little bit too easy. You put a little size on him, and you put a top-tier quarterback like Aaron Rodgers who can throw him open. I think this is going to be an absolute threat to add to your passing game. Rodgers can make any wide receiver good, so if you give him a guy with a little bit of talent, a little bit of speed, I think that's going to go a long way. And I think drafting a receiver in the first round is a must if you want to have any aspirations of keeping Aaron Rodgers around.
Exactly, you're right. I love this pick for two reasons. One, this helps keep Aaron Rodgers in the building, right? If he hasn't left yet, getting a wide receiver in the first round shows you're serious. Hey, Aaron, we want you to keep playing here. Number two, Devontae Adams is a free agent. They're probably going to want to sign him with Rodgers as well. But in the off chance, if things go horribly and Adams and Rodgers both leaves, you have Jordan Love. Theoretically, that's their plan to play quarterback. You need to replace him. And I think Mechie's a guy who can come in and step. We know he's NFL ready. He may not be the most talented receiver in this draft class, but he's a guy who can come into the Green Bay Packers if need be, if Adams is gone, and be productive right away, teaming up with Jordan Love as they try and rebuild that team. They're trying to avoid that situation, but it kind of works either way. Mechie will keep Rodgers here, but if they've already lost Rodgers and Adams, then Mechie's the guy to replace Adams as Jordan Love replaces Aaron Rodgers. That moves on to number 31. This is the New England Patriots, and I have them selecting safety from Michigan, Daxton Hill. New England and Bill Belichick, that defense, they're all about building the back end. That's a secondary, the corners and defensive backs. They're also about usually paying really, really, really cheap on the back end, right? They didn't want to pay for Gilmore. They got Darrelle Revis years ago on a very inexpensive deal. Right now, they got McCourty starting at safety. He's 33, 34. His contract's almost up. He's either going to retire or he's going to ask for big money. Belichick isn't going to pay him much money at all, especially for him at that age. I think he replaces McCourty with Daxton Hill, safety from Michigan. And, look, one of the things Belichick likes when he drafts, he likes drafting guys that played for NFL coaches. Harbaugh, the head coach at Michigan, he coached in the NFL, coached for the San Francisco 49ers before going to Michigan. Michigan's defensive coordinator actually coached linebackers last year for the Baltimore Ravens. Belichick loves those guys who had NFL coaching at the college level because he knows they're smart and can handle complex defensive schemes and situational awareness, which he's going to have to if he plays for the Patriots. And I think it's a good pick for the Patriots here, getting Hill.
I think that's a good one, and I hate when the Patriots keep picking up, scary guys. These guys always fly under the radar. Bill knows how to pick them, so Daxton Hill is going to be a great player for them, and I think for years to come. Are we ready to finish our first ever mock draft, Nick?
Let's do it, man. Finish us off strong.
And the pick is in. With the 32nd pick of the NFL draft, the Arizona Cardinals have selected Breece Hall, running back from Iowa State. Now, they have James Conner, who I am not a fan of. I never thought he was great in Pittsburgh. I don't think he is the best player available for them. And with a young quarterback, you have to capitalize early. Because Kyler Murray, if he stays around, is going to get a big payday, and you're not going to be able to afford anybody. So let's keep a young guy on a young contract. Bring in Breece Hall, a top-tier running back from Iowa State. I believe he's averaged 5.8 yards per carry this season. He's run for 20 touchdowns the last 2 years and has totaled over 1,500 yards the last 2 years as well. He's truly a guy that can do it all. And you need to give Kyler Murray a backfield weapon. He's got the receivers. He needs to have a running back that is comparable to DeAndre Hopkins, I can't remember their young receiver that they have that's so good off the top of my head. But
Well, they have Kirk, A.J. Green, those kind of guys. So here,
A.J. Green and
Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk, that's who it is. They've got a lot of great receivers. Let's give him the running back that they deserve and put Breece Hall in that backfield. And truly, you're going to have to watch both of them every single play because, let's face it, James Conner isn't breaking it for 50 yards. Let's give him a guy who could break it for 50 yards every time he touches the ball, as well as Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I think this is a great pick. And like you said, James Conner is having kind of a big season scoring with a lot of touchdowns. He was a veteran they signed from Pittsburgh. I think he's going to get more expensive. I think a veteran, he obviously was a little more expensive anyway. Like you said, they're going to have to pay Kyler Murray. They've already got a lot of money tied up with veterans like DeAndre Hopkins. I think at this point they've got to look at ways to replace players at the offense to pair with Murray on the cheap. And Breece Hall here is a perfect fit. Maybe Connor walks. Maybe Connor wants a newer contract. Let him walk. Bring in Hall, and I'm sure he just does as well. Getting late, round pick 32. The tongue's getting tied on me. But anyway, I think he does very well replacing James Conner in the backfield there. And again, it comes down to, like we said, if you're going to pay your quarterback big money, you need to make sure to find quality skill positions on the cheap. And we saw that with Tampa with Kenneth Walker, right? They can't pay Leonard Fournette. So they got to get a running back. I think you're going to see the same effect here with Arizona.
All right, Nick. That was tough. It was long. Took a lot of brain power. A lot of decision-making from us. A lot of tough picks. We really put our draft prowess out there, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Good reasoning for all the picks. We didn't do anything crazy. Everything made sense to me. I think these are all very plausible picks. And this was our first mock draft, meaning there will be more. And I'm thinking, sometime after the season ends, we revisit this. Sometime after the combine, we revisit it again. And then right before the draft, we go back. And I think it'll be interesting if the viewers go back and watch and see, has this changed from time to time? Who's moved? Who's shaked? Where are these players going to fall? But I think we did a really good job, and I'm really proud of us. I think we did good.
Yeah, this was a good draft, and I think there's a lot of things here, listening in any teams. I think this is kind of where a lot of teams are leaning, right? And I think our big theme here is, middle of the draft, get the linemen. Get the linemen to protect your quarterbacks. And late in the draft, if you've got good playoff teams, find talented offensive players on the cheap to replace those expensive veterans. I think those are my big two takeaways.
Absolutely. The old adage, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And how much simpler can it be than drafting an offensive lineman? But that's it for us here at Saturday Morning Inspection. As always, you can find us on all of our social medias, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. We're at Saturday Morning Inspection. Twitter, Facebook, at SMI Football Show. As always, check out our website, smishow.com. To see any of our latest and breaking news, sign up for our newsletter. We'll send it to your email directly. You don't even have to type in the website. But that's it for us here. A really great first mock draft, Nick. Our first foray into it. I think we did a pretty solid job, admirable job. And I'm excited to see how it progresses further. We will see you then.